Thank you for listening to The Luminous Mind. Remember to subscribe to our free podcast so you won't miss any of our inspiring content. Here is episode 141.
It's not possible for everybody to go everywhere and experience every part of history. We totally realize that. But I think with the travel that we were able to do, it sparked something that made our kids more excited to learn more about different things.
Benjamin Franklin once said, "Do not curse the darkness, rather light a candle instead." If you're ready to set your mind on fire, then prepare yourself for the Luminous Mind with your host, Rebecca Bowman.
Today's fire starters are Dell and Michelle Bartlett. Dell and Michelle Bartlett are the authors of 2 internationally known travel books and multiple social media sites and blogs with information designed to help people travel more for much less than most could ever dream. They are best known for their first book, Have Kids, Will Travel, and for being the family travel experts, but are quickly becoming experts on inexpensive travel for anyone, singles, couples, or families. In 1997, the Bartletts began discovering different ways anyone could travel inexpensively and sometimes free. Their first trip with their 4 children to France and England cost them a total of $4,000, including air, hotel, car rental, food, and fun. They have since found ways to cut this much more dramatically. As acclaimed speakers, the Bartletts have shared the podium with many notable personalities and have been featured on television morning shows, radio programs, as well as multiple newspapers across the country and countless articles in print. Welcome, Dell and Michelle.
Hi, we're excited to be here.
This is a fun conversation. All my listeners know that I absolutely love travel, and we've done some of that as a family and definitely believe it's an important part of an educational experience for your kids. But before we get into any of that, just briefly tell us a little bit more about yourself, about your family and hobbies and passions, and then let's move into what you love to do.
Well, we were a family of 6, I should say. Now we're a family of 10 because all of our kids are married, but we have homeschooled for the last 16 years. And we are a family that really looks outside the box. It's hard for us to do anything normal, and we really like it that way.
Our next book's going to have to be Have Grandkids Will Travel.
Yes.
That's awesome.
We have a couple grandkids, and we plan on having this be a continual thing. So, of course, as we've talked about, travel is one of our biggest passions, and that's something that we have done for years and years with our kids. And it has been a big part of our homeschooling and our education for them and for us, and just expanding our life and learning about new cultures and new people and having incredible life experiences.
That is great. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit more about the inspiration behind your traveling? When did that start, and how did that all kind of evolve?
Well, we started doing it when it was kind of a bribe for our oldest daughter to start homeschooling. All 4 children were going to traditional, well, actually 3 of them at the time because one wasn't even around, but they were all in traditional school. They were all doing extremely well. And we had one that was kind of a catalyst for us wanting to look into homeschooling. And we thought, well, let's start incorporating, or wouldn't it be kind of fun to incorporate travel into that? In other words, let's study about France and let's go to France on a field trip instead of going to the bakery or the post office or the zoo for a field trip.
So fun.
Yeah, well, exactly. And so our oldest daughter, who, like I said, was very social, doing very well in school, wasn't thinking this homeschooling thing was going to be all that fun until she found out that we were going to go to France, but it was during March. So unfortunately, since she was in traditional school, she wouldn't be able to go with us. And that changed her mind very quickly that, oh, maybe this homeschooling thing's pretty cool.
That's awesome. So how old was she when you started this traveling then, you said?
I think she was 13 at the time. So she was a little bit older before we finally decided that this was an adventure we were going to embark on as far as homeschooling. But it's interesting as we look at each of our children and all the ways that they have excelled. I can't say that it's from me, and Dale probably could say the same. Yeah,
it's definitely not from her.
No, I meant from you.
Oh, okay.
That our kids excelled largely because of our travel. So our oldest daughter, even though she didn't start homeschooling until 13, at 16, she applied for college and won the top scholarship at USU, the presidential scholarship, a 4-year scholarship without a GED or a diploma. The next child was 15. The other two were 17. They're all different, but they all won scholarships and went on to do incredible things in the different areas that they're interested in. They all were very different.
Well, that's great. It is interesting how your kids take on different roles from that. So, but tell me a little bit more, maybe how you found your passion for travel. I mean, obviously, it sounds like your kids were thriving and all of that. Why did you feel that adding travel was so much more important?
Well, we stumbled into it, really. We thought it would be a fun thing to do. We were probably like most people, let's go there and buy the T-shirt and say we've been to France. And so we didn't, at the very first, we didn't see it for what we see it now for, or even just shortly after that for. And so it was an evolution that we started to see a bigger vision in our lives and our children's lives, and how intricately connected the lives of others throughout the world became in our lives and our learning. And that's when we started to stop seeing it as a vacation, but rather as an adventure, and creating this travel vision that we had.
When I was young, I always loved to travel. My parents took us all over the U.S. I never had been to another country, but as I got older and we got married at the very beginning, newlyweds, and we didn't have money, I would keep all the brochures from all these beautiful exotic places and sort of drool over these places that I would like to go to. So I think the excitement for travel has always been there. But once we started homeschooling, we saw this opportunity to learn about these amazing places and people that we were going to visit. And then it brought on a whole greater meaning to our kids when we went there.
Yeah. Well, and I once heard too that especially with people who are world schoolers, or, they definitely incorporate travel in, that your senses, because you're not doing your daily habits, sometimes those daily habits, we just kind of walk through life. But once you're in a foreign place, your brain is just, it's on fire, because so much is different. The language is different, and there's different streets, there's different architecture. Is that how you feel? I mean, tell me a little bit more about your that educational journey and how that's worked into your homeschooling.
I personally believe, and if you look at what our children have accomplished despite their parents, but I truly believe, and it's even happened to us, but I believe travel will rewire your brain. You think differently. You react to situations differently. You have less prejudices against not only people, but against ideas and areas, and things that aren't familiar to you aren't scary. It takes some of the fear of what's wrong with the world out of it and shows you what's right with the world.
Yeah, it's much different than watching the nightly news. When you're there, you can see the hearts and minds of the people, and maybe awesome.
Right. I actually have a great story to share on that note, because so many people fear what they have never done, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just taking that big step and leaping forward and saying, this is something that's important to us and we are going to do this. We had a friend that went to Nepal right after the earthquake. And, very often, what do we hear on the news? Generally, those things that are bad. The people in Nepal, even though they were still recovering after this earthquake, even though they have really generally more difficult lives than we do here in the U.S., they were convinced, just from the things they heard, that America was really unsafe. And she had a couple people ask if there was any way she would like to stay in Nepal because it was safer. And so, sometimes it's our perspective. We only see that little bit when there's so many amazing other wonders in different places, and we shouldn't fear them. It's not bad to be cautious, but we shouldn't fear them.
Yes, exactly. So tell me a little bit about, I'm just curious how you do your education on the road. I mean, do you, study before you go and then decide the places that you're going to go, or do you just kind of jump in? Tell me some of the places that you've been and kind of some stories of things that you've learned in those different places.
Well, let's go with our first big trip to Europe. We went to France and England. I wanted the kids to know a lot about the places we were going to visit beforehand. So we did a lot of reading, Joan of Arc, Napoleon Bonaparte, different areas, lots of other people, different kings and queens from France and England. So we did a lot of reading. They did reports. We did watch some videos. There's a couple great ones on Joan of Arc. There's a lot of great things on different programs, like the History Channel has a lot of great different documentaries that you can get for wherever you're going that they can watch and glean a little more information. But reading was probably the number one thing. The other thing that we did is we would get a program for a language, whether it was, if we were going to France, we got CDs at that time. That tells you how long ago that was. And then they practiced beforehand so they could learn basic things. And then I take them with so that in the car, I would play them while we were there. So they were hearing them again and again. And so when we went, I didn't want them spending all of their time, studying so much as really experiencing where we were at. I wanted them to have that information beforehand, have the reports done beforehand, but they had a travel journal. And we were gone from early morning till late at night. They could write their highlights in their journal, but that way they could write the new things that they've learned, but still understand, what they had learned before. And then going to see Napoleon Bonaparte's house or where he's exiled to Elba brought on a whole different meaning when they knew his story. So when we came home from that first trip, my son, who was 8 at the time, he had a friend over and he was telling him about Napoleon Bonaparte. And his friend looked at him and he was like, I don't know who you're talking about. And, so for us, that seemed to be a really good system. And that's really what we did for most of our trips. And it was really nice because then the trips were actually more relaxing instead of feeling like you had to tell them, okay, get this done, get this done, get this done. You just had it done before. And then you got to go on the trip and relax and enjoy the time and the experiences together.
Well, and what did you feel about with language? Did it help them once they're in that environment? Were they able to speak the language better? Or how did that system work out for you guys as well?
It kind of depended on how much effort was put into it. But overall, they were able to, by the time the trip was ended, and most of these trips were about 3 weeks long, were able to grasp basic conversation. There were also times when our oldest daughter traveled to Germany on one trip about 2-3 weeks before we did and stayed with a family that we were going to go visit. And by the time we got there, she could understand in German what they were saying. She didn't have all of the vocabulary to speak everything, but she was able to understand it very well because you're immersed in it at that point.
Yeah.
And really what we're trying to do on these trips is not continue to cram into them things. But, Plato said that true education is drawing out of someone that which you already know. We went through that learning process beforehand, and now we want to draw out through their senses, through their seeing and feeling and touching and tasting, all of the experiences that they're coming, because it really starts making a lot more sense to them when they can do that. And they don't have to worry about what they have to learn to understand how to bring that out of them.
Yeah, keep your eyes wide open, right? And
yes.
Absolutely. And this is a little example of that. So Marissa was, I think, 5 or 6 at this time when we went to Italy on a particular trip. And she got really good at asking in Italian how much certain items were. So she'd go from, maybe cart to cart. We were right there with her, but asking what the best price was in Italian. And because she was this cute little American girl trying to do this Italian language, which actually kids pick up pretty quickly, you would not believe the incredible deals that she got. So it's amazing how quickly they can pick it up and when they have that opportunity to actually use it. So that's another big thing. It really sparked our oldest daughter into wanting to do a minor in French. And she spent many summers over there and ended up teaching school. She taught French immersion kindergarten.
Oh, wow. That's really neat. So they've been able to actually use that in their adult life, it sounds like, as well.
Exactly. And that's really the cool thing, is to watch how this travel has sparked different interests as they've grown and evolved in their careers and such.
But we probably better put a disclaimer right there, because we took this leap and we have taken them so many different places, and they now are comfortable being out in the world wherever and meeting new people and learning about new cultures. They're not afraid to do that. Our oldest daughter and her husband actually moved to China for 2 years and ended up having our first grandbaby there in China. And a lot of people would be so nervous about that, but she was not afraid of that experience, and she wasn't afraid of trying. And I think it's beautiful, although they were close for a little while and then they were so far away. And so we missed that, but
that is wonderful. So tell me, 16 years of homeschooling and all of the travel that you've done, how do you feel like your paradigm has changed about learning over time and with experience?
Well, we've now been to, as a family, well over 30 countries.
Wow.
Last year alone, we went to 14 different countries.
Wow.
We have seen and experienced things that literally, from the time you get off the plane and you start interacting, will change your life just in that instant. Cambodia is a great example of that. And we were able to meet up with a tuk-tuk driver right at the airport. By the end of the trip in Cambodia, he had invited us over to his home, which was about 14 by 14 feet, with a small little bathroom, a bed that laid on the floor that they pushed up against the wall. We sat on the floor and ate, to meet his wife and his children.
Wow.
And it was one of the coolest experiences we've ever had. Now, you can't read that in a book. You can't watch that in a movie and get that same experience that we had. We went out to a village that was about 3 hours out of Phnom Penh. And this village was literally made up of people who the city had rounded up, all the undesirables, the drug users, the prostitutes, the HIV people. This was basically everyone they wanted to get rid of. And they drove them 3 hours out of town, and they just left them basically to die. And this little village was able to be formed by these people with some help from some outside help, drilling some wells and helping them figure out how to build their houses above so that when the floods came, they weren't flooded out every year. But we were asked to come and speak at their church services, and then we brought them rice. And you cannot, it's impossible to experience those types of things. And that is what we started to incorporate more into our travels. Yes, the learning was important. Yes, it was important for us to understand what happened in Cambodia with the killing fields and Pol Pot and all of the horrific trials they've been in their lives. But more importantly, it was the people. It was not passing by certain people or things just because you had to get to the next adventure.
Yeah. Well, and I really love what you're saying. I mean, what I'm really getting out of this, it's less about the knowledge that you're getting and more about the emotions that you feel, maybe. And then that stirs the knowledge, don't you think?
Exactly. It takes that knowledge that you have, that you've gained, and it makes it now real. And that's where a lot of education falls short. You can learn so much about so many incredible things, and you can have passion about that. But until you actually go and you see and you smell, and let me tell you, Cambodia has smells. They need an app to capture smells to bring back to people. You're driving down the main streets of the capital of this country, and there's open sewers to both the left and the right with burning garbage and huts built all along the open sewer pits. But you don't see this as a horrible thing. You start understanding the people and what their life is like.
So as you were talking about, what's the paradigm change in how we look at things differently now in education? It's not possible for everybody to go everywhere and experience every part of history. We totally realize that. But I think with the travel that we were able to do, it sparked something that made our kids more excited to learn more about different things. So I think it just helped ignite that spark to a greater level where they were even more excited about learning. I remember when our daughter started in college, the oldest one that was 16, and she said, "Mom, I love it so much. There's so many fun subjects. I could go to school forever." And I thought, wow, I'm glad that you're excited about it. It's good because you want them to have that love of learning, that they take the initiative and they start studying.
Yeah. How many kids are just excited to get out of school and she wants to just keep doing that? That's wonderful. So I kind of want to talk about more about what you guys are doing to help other people now, if that's okay, if we change direction and maybe we can hear some more of your fun stories. But a lot of people, I'm sure, are thinking this is so expensive to do. How have you helped people travel inexpensively?
That's the how. We've spent a lot of time up to this point as to the why we do it. And people go, "Oh, well, that's great. I would love to do that. I would love to have that why." But how do you do it? And that's actually, in reality, that's the easy part. It took us a while to kind of figure it out, but we can now, at a drop of a hat, go anywhere in the world we want for literally the cost of food and fun. We've built it into our nature at this point.
Well, and I'm sure, too, that once you start traveling, you build up miles and different things like that, right? I mean, that's how you're able to do hotel
yeah,
or
to a point.
Well, that is true, like he said, to a certain extent. This is one of the things we share when we talk with people about this, and that is that as far as airfare is concerned, you can save miles or gather miles on almost everything that you spend money on all the time anyway. Your Netflix, your cell phone bills. So groceries, whatever it is, sometimes your mortgage. But you need to make sure that you pay that right off. Instead of writing a check to the grocery store, write it to American Express. For us, we have a Delta Sky Miles card because Delta has a hub here. And with that, we try and put as many points as we can on that. And very often, before Dell was traveling longer distances, we could get more points just from the things that we spend money on every day. And it's interesting how quickly they will accumulate. Now, years ago, when we started our trips, we could usually get about 6 free airfares anywhere in the world, probably about once a year. And I remember having somebody come up to me and say, "Well, we just put our money in a credit card that gives cash back." And I'll ask, "Well, how much did you get last year?" $200. Well, and then I share with them that our trip, whichever it was that year, we saved maybe $10,000 to $11,000 because we didn't have to pay for airfare for 6 of us to go to Europe. And I think at the time on that particular trip, it was about $1,800 a person. Wow. So it's worth it if you're going to use it.
Yeah, there's actually a misconception that if you fly a lot, you've got a lot of miles. The airlines have actually made it easier to collect miles on the ground than in the air. I just got back this last week from Beijing. I was scouting out some sites for an upcoming trip that we're going to host in the fall. And so that particular trip, that's, I think, about a 12,000 mile round trip. And I only got, I think, 4,000 actual miles for that trip because of the way the airlines do it now. So, and then when you're traveling using miles, you don't get any miles for those trips. So we gather most of our miles, if we're using miles for that we gather most of those miles on the ground using partners that the airlines have partnered up with, like Netflix, like the credit cards, and other partners. You just go on to any American Airlines or Delta, and you can find all their partners. You just look for the ones you're already doing business with, and they'll give you miles for doing what you're already doing anyway.
You just sign up for them, and then that's how it works?
You sign up for a free SkyMile account or frequent flyer account, and then those miles come in. So what we've done in order to help people do that is in our book, Have Kids Will Travel, in our blogs, and on our website, which is travelingu, and that's just the letter u.com. Those are all places of resources that people can go to. We've also teamed up with a company called Navanas, Navanas, and it's navanas.com. As a resource for homeschoolers, this is amazing. They have Tim Ballard on there, Elizabeth Smart's on there,
Dinesh D'Souza.
Dinesh D'Souza on there. And they have all this incredible material that you can then already pre-done lessons for homeschoolers that they can have access to. And we have in Navanas a master course on how we travel the world for the cost of food and fun. So those are all different resources that people have to get this information that we have in our minds and that we do every day.
That's great. So, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what your job is. When you first started, I'm sure you didn't have this expertise of being able to teach people how to travel. How do you get enough time off and stuff like that to be able to travel? Did it just start out as a once a year type of thing? Or?
He gets asked that question a lot.
I've been with my company for quite a while. So, and they have a fairly generous time off plan that rolls over. So if I want to, I can, if I know we've got a big trip out there, we can accumulate that. What really was the key to this whole thing is when they hired me, they wanted me. And I told them right off the bat, this is what I require for vacation time, and they agreed to it.
Wow.
So to me, the lessons we've learned traveling apply to life. Everything's negotiable. We do that with rental cars. We do that with places that we're staying. We negotiate everything down to the lowest amount. I do that with my job, with my employer. I negotiate what I need in order to accommodate what I would like to do. And it so far has worked.
Well, and if it's a service-oriented type thing, some companies actually give you time off for those type of things too, right?
They do. We haven't needed to go that way at this point, but you're right. There's a lot of employers that are perfectly fine with you working at home. And home doesn't have to be your house. It could be anywhere in the world. We were amazed at how good the internet was in Cambodia, Thailand, Laos. We've been to some very remote, China, remote places, and the internet has been great. And you can do a tremendous amount of work from anywhere in the world now.
Which is fabulous if you're also homeschooling. Think about that. If you can work remotely, you could be on the beach in Fiji or on the beach in France, wherever it is, and you could be working, the kids could be playing, and you could just travel the world while you're homeschooling.
We lived 3 months last year in Australia, and that was an amazing adventure with our youngest daughter. While I was doing some quote unquote work, they were off having fun. And then in the evenings and weekends, I joined them in the fun. We saw pretty much all of Australia that we wanted to see. There's still parts we want to go back and see, but that was half work related, half travel related. And we were able to work that in to what I do.
That actually was something else I was going to bring up, because very often through the years, if he was going on a particular trip for work, if it was something where we could go and we could experience things in the area while he was off working during the day, we would take that opportunity. But this trip to Australia took that even beyond our smaller trips that we've done with him for work. So it was great. And we were so thrilled to have that time with our youngest daughter, because she ended up getting married not too long after we got home. So it was great to have that one-on-one time with her.
Oh, that sounds so fun. Before we go on, let's listen to this message. Recently, the Luminous Mind became an affiliate for Ascents, which offers tremendous discounts on educational supplies. I personally use Ascents to purchase our family supplies because of their great prices, responsive shipping times, and best of all, the chance to earn EduBucks, which I use towards future purchases. Who doesn't love a great deal within a deal? To get a 90% savings on your Ascents materials, go to theluminousmind.net and click on the sponsor page to find the affiliate link. Start using Ascents to illuminate your educational experience. Welcome back to The Luminous Mind with Michelle and Dell Bartlett, helping others to travel with kids. Well, and I would imagine, too, just depends on what your priorities are. I know, you can spend as much on a car or on different toys that we have here in the United States that would cost the amount of travel, right?
Yeah, and that is key. A
trip to Disneyland, for example, is not cheap.
Oh, my goodness gracious. We can go to Europe for 3 weeks for less than what a normal family will go to Disneyland for. Wow. Now, mind you, kids love Disneyland, and you've got to do that at least once in their lifetime, is to take them to and have that experience.
Well, I don't know if you have to, but I'm sure the kids might say that you have to, right?
But it is important to incorporate some of those things. But it's important. Here's one of the fears that we had as we got more and more into this, especially with our youngest. We started with her first trip. She was 3 years old, and she went to France and England, and she had her 4th birthday in France. And what we were afraid of is she grew up with this. And to her, she's been to all of these 30 countries. And if we tell her, we're going to France again, she's like, I've been so many times. And
I know, sad. No, she doesn't say that anymore.
No.
When she was younger, she did say that.
But our fear was that this becomes just so normal that it doesn't become special, or you think that everybody does this and that everybody's life is like this. And that's when we started incorporated the humanitarian aspects to the trips. And Michelle is amazing at this. Even when we've gone to Disneyland, instead of having lunch at the expensive places in Disneyland, we would all pack them up, put them in the car, and we would drive to the homeless shelter or the food bank, and we would do service during lunch, and we would eat along with them. But it took them back to reality. And so every trip incorporated or has incorporated a humanitarian aspect to it. And that has helped keep everybody grounded.
Well, and the emotions, like I was saying earlier, once you get those emotions in there, just compound your experience, I think, that you have. That's kind of what I'm getting from that message.
It really does.
Absolutely. It's living in that moment and just looking and really taking in everything that's around you. You're right about what you said earlier. Very often when we see something that's commonplace, we see it every day. Sometimes we walk past a beautiful flower maybe that we wouldn't notice, but for whatever reason, when you're in a different country or a different place, wherever it is, you tend to look a little bit closer and listen a little bit harder. And it really adds to that experience. Probably a good lesson for all of us, right? In normal life.
Exactly. Well, and then maybe when you come back, it's not so habitual either, that you appreciate where you're at the moment.
Oh, my goodness. That's been one of the biggest advantages to the kids as well, is that they do appreciate what we have, what we're able to do with our lives. We try not to do anything extravagant, because if we do, that takes away from our travel budget. And so most of what we try to do is geared around how are we going to get our next fix. And this is, it's another kind of a warning here, is that travel is extremely addictive. It really, really is. And so you're always after that next fix of travel. And so you do make sacrifices and give up other things that people just do for the sake of travel.
That's great. So tell me about mentoring. What mentors have you had along the way do you feel like have been really helpful for this experience in travel?
Well, I can say personally for me, and it obviously made a difference for our whole family, is a very good friend of mine. It's like a bonus mom to me. And she actually started homeschooling when her kids were young, and they have 11 children. And
wow.
She did a lot of travel with them. And she kept saying for years, Michelle, you should homeschool. You should do this. I don't know. And, I wasn't in the place where I was ready to do it. And even with that said, you could add travel even if they were in school. But I could see through her kids what they were gaining through travels. So for me, she was not only a mentor for homeschooling because she helped me as I started and got my feet off the ground, but she was also a mentor in the traveling and the experiences. And I remember one year being at their house, and Dale was talking about his new snowmobile, and she said, Dale, what's more important, the snowmobile or this trip that you can take your family on. And I remember thinking, yes, I'm with that. I am totally with that.
Sometimes those mentors just help us see things that we necessarily can't see, right? That they help drag us along to a place that maybe we aren't ready to experience until they've been there to kind of guide the way. Is that
correct? And now keep in mind, when we started doing this, we were kind of pioneers in this whole thing as well. There wasn't a lot of homeschooling going on, except for kind of in fringe group areas. The academic part of homeschooling hadn't really caught on like it has now. People traveling the way that you do with families was kind of unheard of. So we didn't have, unfortunately, and we wish we would have, a lot of the mentors and materials that we now have to provide to others. In fact, one of the other areas that we help people is we actually do travel coaching, where people say, you know what, I've read the book, I've done this, but I need some really specific help. This is the trip that we're going on. This is what we want to accomplish. Here's our budget. Get us there. And we then help with that mentoring and coaching capability to say, we will get you there, and we will get you within your budget and take you to places that you would have never thought of.
That is wonderful. Can you tell me maybe some successes that you've seen by doing that with different people?
Yeah, we had just recently a family of 9 in the Midwest that contacted us kind of out of the blue. And he said, look, we have this family dream to go to Ireland, France, and Italy. And we've got like 2 weeks to do this in. As to the time frame, they're going to visit all these places. I'm going, holy cow, we got to do a lot of really specific planning to make this work to where you guys aren't totally wiped out by the end of this. And they didn't have a lot of time. They wanted to do this before some of their children got married. So there was a very short window of opportunity for us to plan this as well. And we got them through this trip. They just can't say enough about how incredible this was. And they said they would have never thought of doing some of the things that we sent them through on accommodations, because it's tough with a family of 9 to find accommodations. And where do you even start on a home exchange or a hospitality exchange or a vacation rental that is in the budget of what these people were looking to fulfill? That was just a really good experience for them. And that was a recent one that we were able to help.
But I think also our why that he talked about before, and the way that we try and experience the country and people on a deeper level and really in humanitarian work. So that's a big one. But also just the opportunity, as Dale said, about being able to go to Cambodia to this tuk-tuk driver's house and be invited there. He said he'd never done that before. Being open to new adventures and opportunities is another thing that we really like to teach when we're coaching, because a lot of people are a little afraid to get outside of that, but they had some incredible experiences and said they will talk about it for years and years to come.
Yeah, sometimes when you're working with somebody like you guys that, are mentoring other people, where you've been there and you can help them get off the beaten path, right? Instead of just following some travel blog that hits all of the, main attraction sites.
Right. Which, there are a few things that you really have to see that are main sites, right? You can't go to France and not see the Eiffel Tower, but there are so many other things. So, see those couple things that are really important and then try and get outside of that. And that's where you're going to have some of your incredible experiences.
That's been the biggest change in people we've mentored. That's what they've said, is that we would have normally just gone and seen the touristy stuff. But the fact that you took us outside of that realm, that's what changed the travel for us.
Yeah. How are you supposed to get that empathy for other people when you're, traveling with all the other Americans?
Well, and you're rushing from place to place. Yes, you're going from the Eiffel Tower to the Great Wall to the Colosseum to, wherever. And you're just rushing past all this. I'll tell you, this is a really good example of, we're in the Louvre Museum, and one of our goals was to go see the painting, the Mona Lisa. And it would take you 2, 3, 4 days to actually completely go through the Louvre Museum. And so we only have so much time. We're rushing through, we're seeing things, and we're rushing to go see the Mona Lisa before everything closes up. And as we're doing so, in this rush to see the one painting, we are passing absolutely the most incredible art in the world. And we get to the Mona Lisa, and I don't know if any of you have ever seen the Mona Lisa, but it's about it's bigger, but it feels like it's about 11 by 14. It's pretty small.
It is small.
And you're going there and you're going, oh, that's it? And it's amazing. Trust me, it is absolutely amazing. But what we missed in our rush to see that one was so much more. And we should have taken the time to just relax and enjoy what was in front of us instead of what we were off to go see.
That rushing around, unless you know what you're doing, you can mess a lot. We went to St. Peters Basilica, and we missed Michelangelo's wonderful, beautiful sculpture. I think my daughter passed by and she said, "Oh, I love that. That's pretty." But we didn't even notice until we got out, was reading a little bit more about it, which, like you said, read before you go. Because
but there's so much.
Yeah.
And that's the benefit of traveling like we do. We have gone to Europe with 6 of us for 3 weeks for $2,500 total. When you can bring it down to that kind of cost level, now you don't have to rush thinking this is going to be a once-in-a-lifetime trip. You can say, I can do this, and I can come back here as many times as I want until I've seen everything that I want to see.
Yeah. Well, tell us how you feel like that families and communities can benefit from adopting this travel educational philosophy.
I think it really opens other people's eyes who may not have been open to it to maybe see things a little bit differently too as they watch you. Because of all of our travels, we've had a lot of people stay here from many different countries all over the world. And sometimes if they're from France, we might have a French party and have quite a few neighbors over. Or a couple months ago, we had our tour guide from Turkey who came and stayed with us for a week. I think that opens other people's eyes to thinking, oh, wait, this really is okay. And look, they're normal, just like anybody else. And the language barrier really is okay. Frankly, most countries
speak better English than we do.
Yeah, that's true. That is very true, sadly. And so I think it really can open other people's eyes as they watch your example.
Definitely. That's for sure. It's interesting to me how a lot of the ideas that we have here is other people are scary. But once they see that you've lived through it.
Right.
Great.
Yeah. See, I think that we focus too much on the negative of the world. And if more people were able to go out and see the good in the world, it becomes an attitude. And we see the world in a perspective that really lives at our core as travelers, and a vision that really just becomes very simple to us, yet very profound in the way that the world truly is. I would love to go to Iraq. I mean, you talk about history, you talk about culture, but right now I probably wouldn't.
I hope not.
Yeah,
right
but,
this minute.
But the people that are there, that everyday family that lives there, they're no different than we are.
Yeah.
It's the political situation that's going on and some of the other things that are going on around them that they're trapped in as well. But when you get down to the people level, the family level, that's what people need to see as communities supporting other communities in the world, because we are the same.
Yeah.
We may have differences in the way we dress, the way we talk, the way we eat, but that's the cool thing.
That ultimately we all want what's best for our own families. And,
they do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, I'll tell you, it is an amazing experience. We had a little girl from Indonesia come live with us for a year, and is Muslim, and the things we learned from her were amazing. The things she learned from us, the cultural interchange that we had gives us a greater understanding and profound meaning to what's really, truly going on in the lives of the true people that are out there.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, I definitely think there would be less war if more people traveled. You could see it like that.
We wouldn't want to destroy some of the cool stuff that's out there.
That's for sure.
I think you're absolutely right.
So tell me, what habits do you think that you could incorporate in your life that would help you be able to move yourself towards this type of direction of travel?
So it sounds like you're asking for those that are listening what they can do to get started so they can travel. We talked a little bit about the airfare. Another one is accommodations, because that can be another huge cost. So one of the things that we have done is we've signed up for home exchange sites or at home exchange sites. And that way you can exchange your home for somebody else's.
And it's free.
And then, no cost. Now, there might be a cost to signing up for the home exchange site, but maybe
it's minimal.
$35 a year. That's really cheap if you're going to go for a week or two somewhere and then you get a free accommodations.
So those are some of the things that people need to start looking at and putting in their mindset. We're big on vision boards and stuff like that. Start visualizing where you want to go and what you want to do, and then start doing a little bit of the research as to how would I do this? And then look for resources like from our websites and other types of things, but get your mindset. So, visualizing the places that you want to go, and then just start talking with the kids about it. Start learning about the places that you want to go, because that'll just in your mind start sparking that interest that you want to do.
Yeah, I think that many times as people, we get stuck in a rut and we stop dreaming, especially when the realities of life hit.
And there's a lot of those in life. I mean, that is part of life, isn't it?
Yeah, but the dreams are what makes life worth living, correct?
Yes, that's right. And those experiences. And I was going to share, too, as far as accommodations, one of the things that we did, and this goes back to the very beginning when I said we really think outside the box, we just took all of our kids and their spouses to Costa Rica, used our Sky Miles. That was their Christmas gift. They had to pay for the other things, but we rented a home there, and then we rented our house out here.
To compensate for the cost.
So it helped take care of the cost of the car and food and some of the other costs from our trip. And so if you can't do a home exchange, you could rent your house out and then you could rent something somewhere else. That's a great way to add a little bit of extra money to your budget when you're going to be gone and your house is going to be empty anyway. So that is something to think about. There's VRBO and Airbnb, just the letter B, N, and B, just the letter B. And those are two great sites that we've used as far as rental.
The Airbnb? Is that what?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and with the home exchange, I heard somebody talking about this one time that maybe if you have pets or animals, it's even a swap like that. Is that correct? Like
Yeah. They'll take care of your dog and feed it and in the evening, and you do the same for them. They'll swap cars sometimes. So you've just eliminated, you flew over there on, this is how cheap it can get. You can fly over there on Sky Miles. You can do an exchange so you don't have any expenses for your accommodations. You can exchange your car for their car while you're there, so you have no rental car. You're now paying for gas, food, and fun, and you have to eat anyway.
Yeah. And you have to pay for gas anyway at home.
Yeah.
So those are some of the ways that we eliminate a lot of those costs or reduce them very drastically.
That's a great idea. But I have heard some people, when I've mentioned that before, and when you're used to doing that, it's no big deal, but they're worried like, well, is somebody going to come and, trash my house or,
But you're in their house.
Exactly.
And they're just as worried about their house as you are about your house. And so afterwards, if they pull a moving van up to yours and take your stuff, you can do the same to theirs, and then you have a prisoner exchange of furniture afterwards.
Yeah, no.
But that does not happen.
Once again, it's getting to know people, right? And realize that.
I have yet to have one person who has done home exchanges that has had a negative experience. I'm sure they're out there. I have yet to experience it or talk to anybody who's experienced it.
But another thing, too, is when you are renting a house in another country or another area, whatever it is, it's a different feeling than just being in a hotel.
Yeah.
A hotel in one city is the same as a hotel in another. So when we stayed in Italy, we rented this old farmhouse. It was a half an hour outside of Florence, up in the hills of Tuscany, surrounded by olive gardens and vineyards. So they made their own wine and they made their own olive oil. And there were 27 little farmhouses on this property. And there was a main big villa that was built for one of the Medici daughters. So we became friends with the family. Many family members have gone back since. And they invited us down for hors d'oeuvres and dinner to meet the Count and Countess at the villa. And they took us through the villa, which really was like an art collection. Their family, once we got there, we found out that their family donated the biggest art collection to the Uffizi Museum in Florence. They had their own wing. So those are the kind of experiences that you can have when you rent or exchange homes that you cannot get from a hotel.
Well, and once again, it's that full immersion type of experience where you're living like an Italian or
a local. Yeah,
local.
And you meet the neighbors and they invite you up for dinner and you talk about their travels and your travels and they tell you places to go that you would never find in a travel book.
That's right. And years later, we still exchange Christmas cards. And in between that, we've been back and visited some of them. It's a lifelong experience rather than just a moment.
That's so wonderful. Well, I love it. Tell us a little bit, what do you feel like some of your long-term goals are going to be with your mentoring? And then also give me an idea of what legacy you hope to leave behind through this work.
We're beginning a new phase because, again, we've always focused on this traveling with our children. Our next phase really is more of we want to be the mentors in a larger way. We want to speak at more conferences. We want to basically encourage people to get out of their little shells and little areas and little towns, and even if it's a big town, and go out and explore the world because it will absolutely profoundly change their lives. And so we're in this phase of now becoming educators ourselves, basically, to others outside of our family. It was all very family focused for so many years. And so we're going to continue writing more books. We're going to continue doing more blogs. We're going to continue doing more mentoring, speaking, and be able to help people understand this is possible. That's, to me, that is the biggest challenge. We speak and we talk and people go, I never thought this would be possible. Now I think it is.
Well, and I love one of the messages that I'm getting is that you're taking the fear away from it. You're making it feel like it's a possibility and we shouldn't be so scared to just dive right in and do it.
I think that's where helping people feel empowered comes into play. Helping them feel like it is possible and I am going to do it. Some of our greatest rewards has been from hearing back from people, whether it's a postcard, we're here because of you, and we just wanted you to know, or emails, whatever the comments are, that's huge for us. If we can have a little part in helping somebody else's life be enlarged and better and more exciting and add some more adventure and family fun, that is what we are all about.
Well, you have me all excited. I'm ready to take off. So before we say goodbye, do you have any final parting words of advice for our listeners? And then please reiterate your contact information so we can get in touch with you.
Absolutely. Really believe that it's possible. We have proven it time and time again.
With not a small family either.
No. I mean, there's 6 of us, and now we took 13 of us to
11.
or 11 of us to. Oh, that's right, because the
grandkids didn't go.
Yeah, so we took 11 of us to Costa Rica. I mean, it's only getting bigger. It's only getting more complicated, but it's still very easy. It's possible. We've proven it. We've proven it with others. You can do this. The resources we're going to have available in the near future that we're putting together on our new website and everything are amazing. We are going to do educational tours that we're going to set up so that if you don't feel like, hey, I can do this on my own, but I want to go with a group of other like people. Michelle's doing a tour to China this coming October. The cost of this tour is amazing. And you can go onto our website at Traveling You, and that's just the letter U, Traveling You, like in university, travelingyou.com, and then just go to tours and you can get information about the China tour.
Also, you can go to travelingyou.blogspot.com and you can follow some of our travels there. And we have little tidbits as far as travel secrets and links to some of the places that we have been to or places that, you might be interested in seeing. Also, as Dale mentioned, we've got a lot of educational trips coming up. I am now working with Navanis, creating online education with some of these other great, incredible mentors that we have. And this year, we're putting together a course that will go with our China class. We also have an England and France class that will explore history and art in those two countries, and we will be visiting England and France next fall. So the 2017, no, not fall, sorry, spring. So May 2017. And then the following fall, we're going to go to Istanbul and Madagascar. So we have a lot of exciting things coming up, but you can check any of those websites. Again, navanis.com.
And then travelingyou.com, and then havekids-willtravel.com. So those are some areas that have a lot of good resources to them. We're going to continue to merge some of these together and just kind of consolidate and provide really easy access to a lot of good content.
Oh, it sounds so fun. I'm excited to talk to you about maybe some experiences like that. That'd be wonderful. We have to do this again. But
perfect. We'd love it.
You have just lit up my fire of travel, and I really appreciate it. It's been an absolute delight to have you on. So thanks for coming on and lighting our minds on fire.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to The Luminous Mind. To learn more about Michelle and Del Bartlett, go to our show notes at theluminousmind.net. Be sure to become a subscriber to our free email list and get our new monthly newsletter. Then check out our services tab to see how we can continue to assist you, our fire starters. Also, to help us continue production of inspiring content, go to the sponsor tab at theluminousmind.net for more information on sponsorship and affiliate programs. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, Google+, Pinterest, and now Instagram. Get our free audio content by subscribing on YouTube, iTunes, and Stitcher. To help us grow, consider these easy ways. Tell your friends about us, leave us a review, share our content, tell us how we can help you, so together we can continue to light minds on fire and change the paradigm of education.